quote unquote consulting is really just, here's what I do, as opposed to anything. I really want to lean into what my knowledge base is, and that's living it and actively living it and explaining it. If you lean like, I'm the one with answers, then that's the problem. It's not about the issue. It's because it's teacher, something went wrong, and you're training them to be not self-sufficient.
Welcome to The Bottom Line, the podcast that brings you real stories behind real restaurants. In each episode, we explore the decisions, systems, and stories behind the most successful restaurants out there in the market. No fluff, no hype. Just real operators, real challenges, and real advice from people who know how to get results. Let's get to the bottom line.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining me in The Bottom Line, the podcast, the real stories behind restaurants. And joining me today is a very accomplished restaurateur, author, and expert in our industry, a restaurant consultant. And I think his goal is, in his consulting practices, just like me, to help independent restaurateurs. Joining me is Mike Bausch. He's the founder of Andolini's Pizzeria, one of the top 10 pizzeria restaurants in the country. He is the author of Unsliced, How to Stay Whole in the Pizzeria Industry. He's an industry thought leader, a speaker, and I'm very glad and lucky that he joined me today.
And former president of the World Pizza Champions team, which is a 5C3, is comprised of some of the best pizza makers in the world. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you for joining me, Mike. Today, so many things to touch base and talk about. You founded and started Andolini's in 2005 in Tulsa, right when you were just 22 years old.
That's correct.
That's awesome. I know Tulsa from Sylvester Stallone's TV series.
Tulsa King, yeah.
Tulsa King. There is even a Tulsa-style pizza on the website. How is Tulsa-style different from the other styles?
Well, I noticed with New York style pizza, it was, done that very particular way. But the interesting thing about California style was like very avant-garde ingredients.
Yeah.
New York, much more focused on fermentation, but I wanted to blend both. But then I was using an Oklahoma flour, which has just a softness to it while still having a chew, almost like a bagel, that I thought was unique. And there wasn't anything that was like, when people are like, oh, you're trying to go for New York style? I'm like, I'm really not. It's more of, and there at the time, there was no pizza place that had started in Tulsa. There's like things in Oklahoma City or even Stillwater, but not something here. So I was like, it's its own thing. It's like its own Tulsa style thing. I'm like, yes, that's what it is. And that's what we've called it ever since.
Amazing. Andolini says 4 locations in Oklahoma, if I'm not mistaken.
Five locations for Andolini's, and then we also have a food truck. We have 2 food hall locations. Our group, Andolini's Worldwide, also has a fine dining restaurant, a Mexican restaurant, a catering company, a location at the Tulsa International Airport that we operate, and the food truck. So all in all, we have 12 things here in Tulsa.
And Mike, I think what I want to start with is, like, how do you manage your time? Like, you created these brands. They are hugely successful. Then you wrote a book. You have a consulting business. How do you find the time to do all of this? What I would love to learn is, how did you create this, like, step by step? What's your suggestion for the next generation of restaurateurs? What would you like them to learn from you?
Sure. I mean, when it comes to building anything, I think there's the big trap that people will fall into is that they get like, oh, I'm BS if I don't do it. And I think there is something to be said about your BS if you never did it, but you have to build it and then create a KPI of what is success inside of that, and then be able to walk away and check the KPI and not do the work of that KPI. So you need to be able to do the work if called upon. But when it comes, building out the first store, then going into the second store, I was driving myself into the ground, and I equate it with like putting on a backpack, and you could run with the backpack, and then you're like, oh, I can handle 2 backpacks, like one on the front, one on the back. But then like the third store, the fourth store, it's like I'm walking around this slow. And then it became, oh, here's what it is to run this location. Here's my expectation of this location. Now go and do it, and I'll check in on that. And after a while, it was, not doing it because I'm needed, but because I want to, whether it's making food on the line or doing the reports or whatever it is. Now I run day-to-day ops for marketing as well as checking in with the team for all my locations, and I'll build a system, and whether or not it's done over text or done over email or done over Asana, like a task organizer, then it frees me up to then do something else. But my best advice is don't try to do 5 things simultaneously. Go hard on one thing for an hour and schedule what you're going to do for the next hour and the next hour and the next 20 minutes and the next 30 minutes. So that way you could be very conscientious of your time and very thoughtful, even when it's like family time, trying to have your foot in the pool and on the computer simultaneously is not a good recipe. So do both, but do them separate. And then again, delegate with a lot of explanation. Don't like, all right, you got it. You got it. Like, it needs to be, here is how you do this. And
this
then
is
once
what done looks like.
Yeah, this is what it should be like when it's done correctly. And then let it be done correctly. Like, do this way. All right, I verified it. You know how to do it. All right, now here is my check-in to know that you've done it for that thing every single week in perpetuity.
I get 100%. I wrote an article. I was talking to a restaurateur, and then I realized that many of the restaurateurs that I talk to, they are around the 3, 4, 5 mark, and I think like if it's a full service restaurant, after 3, that's when you get into like the real trouble. If a restaurant hasn't built in systems, processes. If it's basically fast casual, then the number can be like 4 or 5. But I realized that multitasking is the killer. We think that, like we can divide ourselves into 5 pieces and go through and, be successful in all of the 5 different parts. But what happens is like incomplete areas of improvement. Like none of the 5 is done, because as we all know, like the last 20% of anything is the hardest part. The people can bring it to like 60%, 80%. And these projects could be like huge projects that like, I don't know, implementing an inventory management tool or something. It's a huge project. And when somebody's like stuck in like other 5 things to do, right? If you can't push the project forward, then basically not being the bottleneck of the organization is my advice. And what you said is great, like delegation at the same time, right? The first thing was, manage your own time. Very important stuff. Just like you said, 15, 20 minutes. If it means like plan and execute, time doesn't get lost on you. The second thing is delegation. How did you turn Andolini's initially from like you were managing it to other people were managing on your view? I think that's the hardest transition for many restaurateurs. How did you start delegating and be successful in it?
Well, I mean, at one store, it was all me doing all the payroll, every single aspect. And then at 2 stores, it was like, okay, well, we'll have a GM of this store. Then eventually you have a GM of the second store, but you're still like running between both stores, doing everything. And then we built an organizational chart and workflow for the multiple locations. Once we had an org chart, and we didn't know it was an org chart, but we like, okay, hey, you have a GM and front of house manager, a kitchen manager. Then you start to build up the run rate of what a successful restaurant looks like, and the average, looking at what is successful across multiple locations. Hey, when they run it this way, where the GM takes this day off and whatnot, then you start to find your norms. The big thing to keep in mind, though, is the failure point isn't in working even towards success. The failure point is when important becomes more important than essential. And I mean that in the sense of, yeah, you need to get your prep order done, but you really need to do something that generates revenue. And so often the owner will be manning the spaceship, when they should be pursuing new planets outside of the ship. But they're like, I need to make sure the ship goes according to plan. I'm like, no, you need to go find new planets. You need to get out of the ship and do that and let the ship operate. And the fear is, well, no one can operate the ship better than me. And at some point that's true. Not at all points it's true. And there's a massive fallacy when you're like, the only person that can run this right is me. Then you're just holding on to it. And the scary thing is is people will assume that that's some type of grit or work ethic when it really is ego. It's ego disguised as work and grit and work ethic. And it's a fallacy.
I completely agree with you. I want to add just one more thing, which is I think there is also the comfort in knowing task that has a beginning and an end, almost like a comfort food, right? And rather than learning something new, experimenting with it, and the results may or may not be successful. I think restaurateurs are so much, like, from a brain standpoint, they are so much depleted that some of them that, like, they don't want to take on a new thing, even if, I think this goes like subconsciously, that they are seeking comfort in what they know, they know that they can accomplish, rather than going into a new marketing venture, or, like, I don't know, adding catering to this or that. Or I think some of the times that the projects don't end because maybe they think that it's going to fail or something in that nature. But it's very hard to focus when, the restaurant is calling you saying, like, HVAC system is broken, this is broken, that guy didn't show up. Everything basically passes through the owner. As a restaurant consultant, how are you helping restaurant owners to change this mindset and to basically create something that's systems driven?
I'm an active owner, so my quote unquote consulting is really just, here's what I do, as opposed to anything. I really want to lean into what my knowledge base is, and that's living it and actively living it and explaining it. Like, sometimes the best answer is to ask another question. Like, hey, this guy didn't show up. All right, what do you think we should do? Well, I guess we could call up the place and get another guy. Yeah, do that. Like, if you lean like, I'm the one with answers, then that's the problem. It's not about the issue. It's because it's teacher, something went wrong, and you're training them to be not self-sufficient. So then it's like, hey, if something goes really off the rails, then hit me up. Or you can come to me for anything, but the first thing I'm going to ask you is what your take on it is, because I want to build you to be self-sufficient. So that's what I would advise people on. And then it's, all right, well, if this happens more than once a year, why have we not created a protocol or system? And it's like, well, we did. Okay. Do people know where to go? Well, no, they don't know where to go to get it. All right. So that's the issue. It's really what are we doing here to communicate, and not just communicate, but communicate effectively, where to go, what to do, how to do it, when to do it, and why. Why being a big part of it.
Mike, some restaurateurs could say that their people just don't take ownership. How do you ensure that your people, now Andolini is big, there are multiple concepts and everything, but how did you change, how did you create a culture, an ecosystem in your restaurant that if you go back to like those like 3-4 restaurant range, how did you create a workforce that does take ownership and is willing to learn and does care about these problems?
I think again, we need to start with the assumption that the staff doesn't want to suck. So when people are like, oh, they don't care, I'm like, they do. You just aren't allowing them to do. So let's first get that out of the way. And then it's, are they empowered? What is their bottleneck? And do they feel that they could go and do it? And then are they being held accountable? So it's either, do they have what they need? And then are they getting what they need to get? Like, that's it for everyone. My dad, my brother, and me have all been in the Marine Corps. You can get a lot out of people when you give very finite instructions and a time constraint. You just can. So I don't accept this theory that it's like, well, they're not taking ownership of it. Now, on the inverse, there are people who are predisposed to be Mustangs and people who are predisposed to be mules. A mule needs to be kicked in the ass to do it. A Mustang needs to be reined in because they're going too all over the place. Most people are one or the other. With finite instruction, you could pull the Mustang in. With a time cap, like, hey, this is the expectation, you could get a mule to go. But it's all about just clear expectations out the gate. And if it's not clear, that you don't get pissed at them, but that you look inward to be like, all right, what wasn't clear here on me? Because the second you're like, these guys can't do it, you are announcing to the world, I'm a victim of this person's lack of ability. I'm the victim. because they're not doing it, which I don't accept. I'm like, it's on me. It's my fault, which also means that I'm the one who can undo the problem, which is very empowering.
That's very, very, very good. What kind of developments have you seen in the last 2-3 years, especially like in the restaurateuring in general and, pizza, like you have a fine dining operation, pizzeria. So quite a bit of a range in terms of like what you experience. What are some of the things that you have noticed in the last 2 years?
I mean, there's so many things that are always evolving and there's so many things that stay the same. People are the same. I noticed that gaming the algorithm for third-party delivery is becoming more and more important. So if you're not exceptionally speedy, or if you just have one item that drags, that you're like, when you had in-house, you're like, whatever, it's not a big deal. That is a big deal now, because if the algorithm isn't aware of you, I think the biggest things I'm noticing is just algorithms and how they affect restaurants, be it the third-party algorithm, be it the social media algorithms. And again, the inverse is the same. Like if you go back to visibility and connection, that was the case back in 2005 with the phone book. Where am I at? I'm at the top of the phone book. That's why we called ourselves Andolinis instead of my Italian name, Carlucci. Carlucci was potentially copyrighted, but we needed an A name for visibility. So visibility and then connection. Like, hey, you might have done it over snail mail in 2005. Now you can do it through DM on Instagram. Connection and visibility, same ethos. It's just what's the conveyance of it? What's the messaging platform? Instead of phone book and email or phone book and snail mail, rather, it's email and Instagram. But making people feel special has not changed. The speed at which people can get in and out of the door has not become less important. It's just hyper aware now that we can see we'll get more or less customers via these other applications.
And from a profitability standpoint, what have you seen change?
Well, the 2023 inflation surge was a lesson for a lot of people. And then it was, all right, do we make better products? Do we shrinkflate? Or do we increase price? I looked at it like, well, I don't want to make a crappier product, so let's get the pricing in line. And I think it made it abundantly clear to all independent restaurants that there's 3 things that they're going to be judged on. Are you value-based, i.e. you're the cheapest? Are you convenience-based, i.e. you're the closest? Or are you experience-based, i.e. you're the best? And if you try and win on value or convenience, like I'm king of either of those as an independent owner, you are going to lose. Hard stop. That's not your thing. You have to go for experience now. It's now however you define experience. Is that the food's walk to your car? Is that there's lighting a drink on fire in front of you on site? But whatever it is, it's now in the experience realm. And it always was. But to try and do this middle ground is just a fool's errand.
100%. And how did you react to some of these inflationary?
Had to roll with it. We usually change pricing about once or twice a year at most, and we had to do it 5 times that year. We just had to. Like there wasn't a choice. Like we have to, and it's not out of greediness. Like we have a duty to create a healthy restaurant for all the lives that we are responsible for, and that's what we had to do.
And I get this question, like, should I increase my prices? And like people, so I usually like listen in and ask some questions, and restaurateurs tell me, like one restaurateur told me, like people are super upset like when we increase I am in need to increase the prices again. Should I do it? Where do you draw the line in price increases?
I mean, if you could justify it based upon food cost, then you do it. It's as simple as that. Like they're like, oh so many customers. I'm like, how many customers? 3? Okay. Just because you have some people saying it doesn't mean everyone's saying it. And if we're going based upon pure down and dirty math, yield usually wins, and people become emotional in their decision making. And they're like, well, this and this and this. I just don't buy it. Like the empty can rattles the most. And if you're pissing off a value-based customer to try and create the counter is that you have to create the experience. Like if you're selling Bush League food and now just charging an insane price for it, no.
No.
If you're if to anyone who's selling fried mozzarella sticks from a bag, deep frying them for 5 minutes and putting them on a plate, you're not in the experience game. You're gonna lose. You're selling a commodity product and trying to say that you are a unique value or experience-based proposition. That's just outwardly untrue. So if you make an experience, you're gonna win. And when people are like, well, I don't know if I'm an experience or not, I'll say,
you would know if you
even just being unique is experience. Like, where does one buy a Crunch Wrap Supreme? The immediate answer is like, well, that's Taco Bell. Like, great. It's a glorified torta. If I say, where do you buy a torta? They're like, any Mexican restaurant. I'm like, okay. But when you have a Crunch Wrap Supreme, it's from Taco Bell. So what are you doing to create your own Crunch Wrap Supremes, i.e. a unique to you item that I don't even have a comparison? It's not a commodity because you're the only one who sells it.
Oh, that's a very interesting way to look at them. How did this view affected your designs in the multiple concepts that you have?
I look at things that are unique to the concept, but also what is not unique. And there's things that are not unique. Again, connection, building brand. And then you might have a different brand voice, but you have a brand voice. And it's just doing those things across the framework or the operating system of all these stores, and then differentiating the nuances of each app in the operating system. And looking at it like a computer system sounds monolithic and like cold, but it's a much smarter way to approach it.
How so? How so much?
I mean, if I'm looking at it like, again, the operating system of this, the restaurant runs on this operating system, but in this app, it's a blue color scheme. This app, it's a red color scheme. This app, it's this type of fun, zany brand voice. This one, it's more like nuanced and regal. But in both, the other part of my operating system is at no point will the brand voice be braggy or say something that's inauthentic. Like, none of my restaurants will be like, you gotta try us. We're the best. Like, I would never say that no matter what, because that's an inauthentic, opinionated way of approaching marketing. Instead, we'll say Tulsa World named us the best new restaurant in Tulsa, or TripAdvisor named this restaurant a top 10 pizzeria in America. These are statements of fact. There's no arguing fact. But if I'm like, you gotta try it, people's immediate reaction is like, don't tell me what to do.
From a culinary standpoint, like, are you like, you created this incredible brand, incredible recipes, I bet. Pizza is the darling of America, right? Hey, what have you seen like in the last few years that you were, and because of your role in the organizations, you're an industry thought leader. What are some of the creations that you were positively surprised in the pizza world? I
mean, pizza has brought in all sorts of different styles that used to be very insulated to their region, and now they're very open to the world. It's whether it started with like New York and Chicago style, but then it was Sicilian, and then we integrated Roman, Napolitana. All these styles are not so insulated to their location anymore.
Yeah. And
that's from the pizza perspective, though.
And Sliced has 5 types of pizza.
Yes.
Sliced is one of the concepts, and 5 types of different pizza. That's just amazing. By the pie or by the slice?
Yes, by the pie and by the slice. And we did that. That was not just, that's where like artistry meets the need, because that location is downtown. So we have people that are drinking, and we're like, well, we need to have slices going all night. But then we have a lot of out-of-towners, a lot of people who are foodies.
Yeah.
And we wanted to have something that was like, if you wanted Napolitana, which the store started just as a Naples-style restaurant, which was fine. It did well. It was in the black. But we would have the avant-garde customer, and then other people like, I don't like Naples style. I just want pepperoni. So like, well, let's give them the classic Andolini slice, but then we integrated Roman style. And then it was just doing all these things at a location that gave it the multifaceted approach. Now, everything has an inverse. The inverse of that is you have too many styles and not a need for them. You can overextend the menu and make a bunch of, crap or just having filler. So it has to be all killer, no filler. Like, we have 3 different doughs making 5 different styles. That works there. It wouldn't work in another environment.
I think going back to what you said first, one of the reasons that you were successful is you nailed down hard on each one of these concepts, like menu creation concept. Everything is fully developed when you launch it. There is no watering it down. Since I started doing this podcast, that's a common theme that I have seen in the restaurant. There is a big planning and a lot of thinking before taking action on the creation, and thus there is a lot of thought process in the ultimate product. I think that also creates a stable ground for the employees, because when the ground is shaky, when the thought processes aren't as mature, the product goes out, and then the restaurant owner needs to tinker every day, rather than creating a systematic solution. In my experience, that creates inconsistency on the employee side by the virtue of there isn't a stable ground for them to, stand on. By the virtue of you have exhaustively, thought about all of this, created your own Tulsa style pizza is just remarkable.
Thank you. I appreciate that a lot. So to add to that point, it is true. Like, we spend a lot of thought, but we don't let thought overwhelm us. Like, there's a time where it's like, all right, try it. If it fails, like, again, that multiple style location started with just one style, and then we pivot because we're not in love with ourselves to the point of like, no, it's perfect. We just need to keep driving in. The fallacy of, well, because I've worked really hard on this, I should go down with the ship, is something we've learned to not do. But I see a lot of owners who do it. Like, well, I have to sell pasta. I have a crew. I'm like, you barely sell any pasta. You should focus on the other items. Well, no, that I need to just sell. I'm like, you're not even making money on your pasta. Well, I don't want to change the price on it. It's like this inability to pivot or modify things is perilous to a lot of owners, because they'll have their whole marketing around a failed item just because of some weird small problem that they want to handle. And looking at things with an artistic mindset, a lot of work ethic, but still able to pivot and not be in love with anything to the point that we're going to fail. And then especially looking at it from a pure mathematical perspective, like, this is a hypothesis. Will it work? It did not. Do it again. And dirty, basic ass math. Is this creating revenue? We believe it might. Okay, did it? No. All right, ditch it.
So bringing the product to the market, there is significant thought process on the product development. Then bring the product to the market, but then measure and see whether this test prevailed, is a success or a failure. I mean, even talking about all of this, you need to be able to implement the product to the market. You need staff who are willing to basically take this and run with it. That is not going to deteriorate the existing operations in this test. You need to have accounting and other kind of systems to basically tell you whether the test has prevailed or not, to be able to isolate the effect and bring it to your attention. What I'm trying to say is that a lot of components need to come in, even in this small aspect of the business that we are talking. Maybe you bring in a new product that needs to be researched from a procurement standpoint. Recipe costing has to be done before you launch it. And for that special or something. There are so many things, maybe up to 100. You do marketing, see how people respond, like all of these like different aspects. Like, you need to have like a very stable ground to be able to experiment, understand, learn, and then make a decision or nay. I think like that's having a very strong starting point does help. I think the problem is many restaurateurs, it takes, I think, 100 to 150 points to manage a restaurant. You need to be good at all these different aspects of the operation, whether this is repair and maintenance, procurement, employee appraisals, and HR and whatnot. That's the common theme that I see in the restaurants that work versus don't work. If I may ask you this, Mike, what did you learn since you started the consulting business? Basically you worked rigorously developing Andolinis. You became an industry thought leader. Then you wrote a book, and then the consulting. What did the consulting teach you?
I mean, I've learned a lot by helping others, but I learned how painfully similar everyone is, even though they are unique individuals. I wrote the book with no angle, and it went to #1 on Amazon, Unsliced. And then people were asking me to fly out to them and help them out with their restaurant. And I did that about 3 times, just mainly because I have a passion for helping restaurant owners. And if I'm doing something proprietarily that's working, I'm like, well, here you go. But then I noticed I forgot something that I did at the first restaurant versus the second one. And then I wanted to do it in a program where people could do it like 11 o'clock at night. So I created an online program with me helping with a group call. And I noticed that everything boiled down into vision being on the same page, essentially owners in agreement. If that wasn't set up as the foundation, everything else was just a goner. It's not going to happen. Then metrics. A lot of people are like, oh, our food is great. Our customers love us. Our staff is fantastic, but they have no real awareness of their numbers. They're waiting for their CPA to give it to them in 3 months. So that was the next thing that I realized. Way more owners than I realized. That was a surprise, that were flying by the seat of their pants when it came to their financials. And if I look back, in all honesty, I believe I was at first too. Then it was all about marketing. And a lot of people are trying to market to everyone, thinking that and they're a mile wide and an inch deep. And that's the fallacy that I've noticed, especially there. Then something that is natural to me is leading staff and how to get people to care, not just like, here's how to do it, but how to get them to care intrinsically, especially if you're not on site. The big problem with store 2 is they were like on site, kicking it with everyone at store 1. And now they're trying to leave, but have the culture stay. And that's where a lot of problems develop. So how do you embed the culture, even when you're not around, to then reduce attrition? And then the next issue that I'm seeing that I wanted to address is how to really become a partner with all your vendors so they want you to win, so you get the best pricing, so that you could really do that level of ownership where you're going after, instead of working your ass off on $1,000 catering order, which at 10% profit is $100. Hopefully, like that's hopeful. It's probably more like $40, or with one call to even just your cell phone provider, you could be shaving off $10,000 over the course of the next few years. Like, these are the things that I want owners to focus their attention towards and have big eyes on the prize mentality. And then once they get all that, how do you systemize it? And I can only do that because I've done it personally, and I've learned through experience what absolutely works and what does not.
100% my experience. So I started with 2 things: CFO consulting and procurement, GPO. We bring in GPO, implemented 15% savings on the food and many of the unpacks items. Then systems, processes. Then as I started taking on restaurants, I realized accounting doesn't exist in them. So I'm not even able to see like what kind of an impact I'm making. So we created a bookkeeping arm to basically give owners, weekly, monthly financials to the best financials, and then HR to be able to make these changes and have them stick. We have an HR arm, in which case, all these like handbooks, performance appraisals, good people stay. We both have a similar experience. I developed all of these in the restaurant that I was managing, but doing it for others, I think was both easier and harder. It is what I figured. And I also learned, I think it's when it's not my restaurant. I say my restaurant, the restaurant that I managed. I didn't own the restaurant, but it was a big, large organization, and people already trusted me when I was steering the ship. Going into a new restaurant where people don't really know me, what I found is I want to go back to one of the first points that you made, which is people want to do well. People want to be empowered. People want to be given the tools, the resources, the structure. People don't come to work just to make a paycheck. They want to go home to their sons and daughters and say, I made people happy with a great pizza or whatever. It's just that were they given the chance, or there was a point that they cared and they no longer care because things have happened along.
Yeah, that happens often. I mean, the number one reason why people quit is because of bad managers. It's not because of almost anything else. Bad managers lead to people quitting.
Do you work with Mike? Do you work on the consulting? How how important is the consulting arm? Are you mainly doing that are you seeing that as a significant, is it a significant part of your life, or is it more of like the restaurant and like being a thought leader? Which part of this life is the most important for you?
Oh, I mean, I don't qualify it that way in that sense. I mean, consulting is, I'm helping thousands of lives to do by proxy of them, impacting them. And I can't do that. So I've reached a lot of impact here in Tulsa, and that's my goal in life, is to have as much impact to the world positively as I can. The program lets me to do that on another level, in a completely different way of what I do with my restaurants. The restaurants run like a spinning top. I'm proud of that. And I want that for more owners to invert it. When it comes to the time, there was a time where it took a lot out of me to do any aspect of it. It's a lot of jet fuel to get a jet in the air, but once it's in the air, it's not a lot of jet fuel to keep it there. And that's what I have for all my things at this point.
Congratulations to you. And how about the book, Unsliced, How to Stay Whole in the Pizzeria Industry? I love the staying whole.
It took that was an 18-month effort. That is a real ass book. There's a lot of books. It's not hard to write a book, but it is hard to write a well-organized, thoughtful book. And I'm proud of it. I worked with, like, if people know David Goggins and Can't Hurt Me and that team, I worked with the same team that did that book and has done the Scribe Media team is an impeccable team. Now, no one wrote the book for me, but I had editors who challenged me to edit my ass off and create the best possible book. So I'm really proud of it. But again, I wrote that not for a cash grab.
Of course.
It was purely to get it out of here and get it out there to help people. Yeah.
Sharing. And by the way, like, what do you also see? Like, this is what I see. This, like, systems, SOPs, like discipline, employees, all that kind of stuff isn't really too popular among the restaurant owners. What I see is, like, everybody talking about, to the most part, like new menu items. How do we raise the prices? Like, you can raise the prices by, benchmarking or, like bundling and, just train your sales team to sell more, upsell, all these kinds of like revenue side things. And I think, like, when I first started consulting in 2022 and to the most part 23, that was kind of like all the rage. There are no, employee retention, employee availability is a big challenge. Everybody was focusing on revenues and having enough employees to run and generate those. Now the conversation is slowly changing towards, like cost and how to manage the cost aspects of it. But do you also see this trend within restaurateurs that they are primarily like revenue, like they manage the restaurant primarily through revenue, not so much on the aspects that we discuss, which is, the profitability aspect, the systems implementation, all that kind of stuff.
Well, I think the term systems is a very ubiquitous term, and some people will interpret it like, oh, I love organization. And other people are like, I don't know what system is. I just need to get my menu organized. Like, yeah, that's a system. There's a system for that. And whether or not it's a Google form, whether or not it's a spreadsheet, whether or not it's a video of how to start and stop something, it's all systemized so that when I do a new menu, it's like, okay, I'm not, well, what do I start with? Like, no, this is the list of things in order of how we ideate a new menu item so that it goes according to plan. And some of that was done, like, I had done it 3 times and like, what did I do last time? Oh yeah. And I was like, well, I should write all this down. So the next time I do it, I don't forget to put a press release out that we're doing a new menu, which would sound like, well, why would you do that? But then I did it and it got a bunch of press attention. I was like, did most of the work for my launch and it cost nothing. Like, certain things I've just learned over time. And that's what is in the concept of a system. But for sure, there's owners who have their bright and shiny. The bright and shiny might be, a new ingredient. The bright and shiny might be a new app that integrates with their POS. The bright and shiny might be just another event is in town. Getting people out of what they fall into and into the other thing is usually the smart play for an owner because they fall into what's comfortable, and that's the downfall. The chef-driven owner doesn't need another menu item, but they think that that's what's going to save the restaurant. There's usually, if we're going from point A to point B and there's a bridge, food, ops, and marketing are the things holding up this business bridge. Or so they're leaning in on the food column while the other two columns like financials and marketing are falling apart. And they're like, well, I did an Instagram post, or, well, we have QuickBooks. It's like, okay, but those, you're not putting the attention that you would to like, oh, I want to do, stone or some type of ancient grain dough as you would. And then someone is like, yeah, I haven't looked at our menu in 2 years, but we have 200,000 followers on Instagram. It's like, great. How many of them are actually in your community that would be able to buy from you? There's always the other thing. Not too often do I find someone who has a high level of financial acumen and neither of the other two. That's more rare. If I do find someone like that, it's someone who came from the other world, like they came from a corporate world. They're like, we want to make this restaurant profitable. I'm like, yeah, but your food sucks. Like, well, we have customers who like it. I'm like, yeah, they're not jerks. Your food's not great. You have a 3.8 on Google. Your food sucks. You have to do something about that.
And how did you find the people? I think one of the, to my understanding, one of the strengths of yours is being active in your community, right? Talking to a lot of people and both providing a value to them and then learning from these interactions. How did you learn about the aspects of this business because running a single restaurant doesn't require, like all of these things that we discuss? Was it the people that you had conversations, you had good mentors?
I have there's no one answer, but I'm very observant and I like to game things. It's interesting to me. I working at my first restaurant. I was like, I noticed that we would have either, it was a steakhouse, a starch on the meal. And if it was a baked potato, it was on the servers to put that onto the plate. If it was like mashed potatoes or au gratin potatoes, it was on the kitchen. And I was just like, I would notice when it came time to take the plates out, the servers would go look at this list and be like, all right, oh crap, how many baked potatoes I need to get? They would do that every time. And I just said, I would just look at all the tickets and write a number on all of this needs 2, this needs 3, this needs 4, this needs 0, this needs 1. And I would go through it. And that's a system. And when I did that, me at 18 working at this restaurant that's been around for 20 years at the time, they were like, what? It's crazy. And it was like, I just shaved 5 minutes over the course of the next, hour and people running to go get something on the fly. And I was like, that's not hard. It just takes ingenuity. So ingenuity is my master. And if I can find ingenuity by watching someone else who's done it before me, by learning it from some other business course, by learning it personally and developing, I will do that all day. Some mentors I had Tony Gimignani is without a doubt, the greatest pizza maker in the world. Seeing how he operates his locations helped me a lot. My brother comes from an intense business background in the corporate world, and him with me able to take things on and say, well, in corporate world, they do this. Let's see how that works here. I don't fall into cliches. I like to say, well, how do they do this in some other aspect that's successful? And how can we parlay it to our world?
That's very interesting. I did the same from automotive. So I started my career at PwC, PricewaterhouseCoopers.
Yeah.
Automotive was my primary industry. The others were, some other manufacturing, like chemical manufacturing, many other industries as well. But automotive was my bread and butter. Lived in Detroit for 6 years as well. And like automotive figured manufacturing processes 100 years ago. They were able to make 500,000 vehicles without computers or something that, that would do the math, the calculations, or they had 100,000 employees in a single plant to do the payroll for. I agree with you wholeheartedly. I think these are some of the things that can be improved upon the restaurant industry in general, like multi-unit owners or the mom and pop operations. Maybe not so much, but 3 to 4 units, multi-unit operators, I think. But the primary reason why the struggle, in my opinion, is you don't know what you don't know, number one.
Mm-hmm.
There is so many hours in the day, and rightfully so, learning something after taking care of all the other people's problems,
Yeah.
is super hard. Our brains have certain capacity. At the end of the day, if you solve like 10 problems in a single day, like last thing I think somebody wants to do is like having a conversation on something new, or learning something new. That's why I think like leaders like you, coming to this podcast, other podcasts, and sharing what is very important for people to come and grasp these concepts. At least like start asking the right question. I think that's where these things start. Start like knowing what question to ask, or big picture, like what is available, what am I not doing, and how can I improve in a nutshell.
If you're asking how would I say, if you're wondering what can you improve, the thing I always say to all owners is you're either impressive or by default you're unimpressive. So if you think you're doing everything right, that's not enough. Is it impressive? Is it setting the tone like, oh wow, oh crap, they do that? Like if it doesn't generate that, the problem, especially in the restaurant industry, is that there's so many choices of people who are doing everything right that if you're not doing it at an impressive level, now that doesn't mean that it's all fine dining like coup de grace. It means you're doing something like, oh wow, that was cool. Oh, that's nice. Oh, wow. Like if you're not generating a bunch of those pops in the customer, you're not going to win. And so you have to ask, is this impressive? And if it's like I showed up, I have my shoes tied, I comb my hair. Great. Everyone does. That's just humanity. But if you're, every single time they leave, we open the door and we walk them to their car, like not a creepy way. I'm just riffing, but you would come up with something that is your thing and have it be everything. And if you're looking like even down to our pepper and parm shakers, I hated that there was really only two that you could buy, the one from Winco and the one from American Metal Crab. Every pizzeria in America had them. So I created, can I get some other glass jar and create through metal fabrication some other metal lid? Because I don't want to look cliche in any aspect of this. And that's just one thing out of 100 that we have to do if we're going to hit that impressive part in the brain whenever we're engaging with a customer.
Wow. And that's attention to detail. You must have a very strong team of people. How did you find them? How did you develop them over time?
Well, you really have to have a low attrition rate. And when you get someone who's great, you make them feel appreciated. Like you don't just let them feel, you make them feel appreciated. And when you do that, you reduce attrition and you keep the good things going. And then keeping communication open with quarterly evals, and not in some generic sense, but a really in-depth, thoughtful conversation about goals. Just when you create one, you have 10 people on staff and 3 are exceptional and 6 are good. And then you just keep going. And then another exceptional person comes every few months and you keep treating them well. Eventually you have a 90% exceptional staff. And that's how you insanely reduce attrition and insanely increase profit. And that's why respecting people's time and ability and acumen, and also expecting a lot of yourself, is the win.
Amazing. Mike, is there anything you would like to add?
If you're out there and you're interested at all in what I do, you can go to getunsliced.com or follow me on Instagram. And I will, if you're an independent restaurant owner, my program might be for you.
Let me share this on the screen. Here we go. Are you able to see? Yeah.
I saw, there it is. Yep, that's me. And that's my program.
Getunsliced.com. Sign up. And this video. Watch this video, people. Watch this video over here. You really touched and changed people's lives. And this is the website for the restaurant. That's
for other owners. If you want to see what I do, if you're like, there's no way this guy does that, check out andolinisworldwide.com. I got 12 locations. They're all here in Tulsa, Oklahoma, all owned by me and my brother.
That's awesome. I'm sending my best regards to your brother as well, who is also veteran, right?
Yeah.
Mike, thank you so much for joining me and sharing your wisdom. I'm thankful we got so many good learning opportunities in this episode. Thank you for doing what you are doing, helping people. Your book, I'm sure, has helped many people, the consulting program, and keep doing what you are doing. I'm very appreciative of your time for today.
Right on. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to The Bottom Line. If you found value in today's conversation, make sure you follow, share, and leave a review. Have a question or need a professional's opinion? Then be sure you reach out using the links in the show notes below. New episodes come out every other week, and until then, we will see you next time.